In this Be Digitally Different video, we'll dynamically visualize how Intel fell into a disastrous black hole after first establishing and then losing its Tick-Tock node leadership. Through visualization, we'll be able to see aspects not readily apparent from words alone, so let's get started. Although the Tick-Tock strategy had become well known in 2007, virtually no one realizes that Intel's tick cadence actually began earlier, with 2002's node transition from 180 nanometers, then already 3 years old, down to 130 nanometers, as we can see here. That 130 nanometer node was an important milestone, bringing copper interconnects and low-K dielectrics, as exemplified by the relatively energy-efficient Pentium 4 Northwood CPU. The debut of hyperthreading can be seen as an architectural talk step in 2003. Intel now began consistently shrinking its desktop nodes on a 2-year rhythm. This progressed steadily and relentlessly, like a well-oiled machine, through 2004's notorious 90 nanometer node, hot and loud Prescott, and 2006's 65 nanometer node, cooler and quieter. Although the tick part of Tick-Tock had already been in de facto effect for 5 years by now, only in 2007, during this 65 nanometer node, did Intel officially reveal its now famous Tick-Tock strategy to the world. 45 and 32 nanometer node shrinks followed like clockwork in 2008 and 2010 respectively, accompanied by their talks in 2009 and 2011. And 2012 saw the 22 nanometer tick, which featured FinFETs as exemplified by Ivy Bridge. 2013's still on schedule 22 nanometer architectural talk was Haswell, which added features such as AVX2. Just as Haswell was entering high-volume manufacturing, Intel's board of directors replaced outgoing CEO Paul Otellini with a new CEO, Brian Krzanich. His appointment proved to be a disaster of unimaginable magnitude. Krzanich already had been carrying a notorious reputation as a mean-spirited, self-serving power grabber, but he was appointed anyway. The curse of Krzanich took almost immediate effect. A mere 12 months after his appointment, in 2014, the 14 nanometer node failed to appear. 1 year behind schedule, it entered high-volume manufacturing only in 2015. 14 nanometer eventually became Intel's involuntarily longest-lasting node. Thanks to Krzanich, it remained Intel's leading, in air quotes, node for 6 long and sleepy years. 14 nanometer's ridiculous talk, and talk refreshes appeared in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 respectively. And 10 nanometer, which is now called Intel 7, failed to appear in 2016 under Krzanich, while 7 nanometer, which is now called Intel 4, was a no-show under him in 2018 as well. During this 5-year time span, the curse of Krzanich had transformed mighty Intel from unrivaled technological leader into industry laughingstock. Intel's board of directors should never have appointed Krzanich in the first place. They finally sacked him in 2018, but were revealingly too dishonest to say why. Instead of firing him way too late for destroying the company, they pretended to fire him for an old, consensual affair. The board then appointed Chief Financial Officer Bob Swan as interim CEO, which is a normal and prudent step under such circumstances. But Swan remained CEO for 3 years, much too long for a temporary CEO. At least 10 nanometer finally got working by the end of his reign. At year-end 2021, 5 years behind schedule, Intel managed to pleasantly surprise the industry by finally introducing a 10 nanometer consumer desktop CPU, Alder Lake. Performance was unexpectedly very competitive, so competitive that I bought one myself. That summer, as Alder Lake high-volume manufacturing was already ramping up, Pat Gelsinger became CEO, and thus hadn't had a chance to play a role in the birth of that CPU and its 10 nanometer enhanced superfin process node, other than to rename the node as Intel 7. Gelsinger was a good choice for CEO. If anybody can rescue Intel, then it's him. With 2021's Alder Lake as Intel's first tick in 6 years, 2022 saw a minor talk. And during 2023, we'll unfortunately soon see a minor talk. Only time will tell whether there will be a dreaded minor talk in 2024 before Intel finally, hopefully, introduces a new client desktop tick in the form of Intel 4. In any case, Intel will have managed to achieve only 2 desktop CPU node shrinks in 11 years, compared to 6 shrinks in the prior 11 years. As we can see here, that is shocking. One of the first things Gelsinger did when becoming CEO was to renumber Intel's nodes. While an easy thing to do, it doesn't eliminate the gap between Intel's planned versus achieved progress. I've labeled the affected data points with both Intel's original node names and their new Gelsinger equivalents. Amusingly, he not only renamed the 10nm and later nodes, but also even 2012's old 22nm node as Intel 16. Well, that's one way to seemingly make progress, but this does nothing to reverse the reality of Intel's lost leadership. Intel has now been behind its own original node schedules for a cumulative 10 years. As we can see here, that's extraordinary. But there's also another gap, the one between Intel's and TSMC's leading nodes. As of the date of this video, Intel is still 2 full nodes behind TSMC. Intel's current Intel 7 client desktop leading node in 2023 only matches TSMC's old N7 Plus node introduced 4 years ago. That's how far behind Intel is. All in all, the board of directors were exceptionally derelict in their duties. It's incredible that they allowed this disaster to go on so long. What our chart also reveals is that no one seems to have noticed that it took the board 7 years from the disaster's start to the response of appointing a proper rescuing CEO, Pat Gelsinger. Was Intel's board paying any attention to the health and viability of the company with its more than 100,000 employees and their families? If yes, then how could the board have let the situation get this out of hand? Well, maybe that's a topic for a future Be Digitally Different video, so stay tuned.